Hello and welcome to the Wolfenhaus YouTube show. My name is Fraser and I'll be your guide through history's dark and mysterious alleyways. As usual, don't know why I say that, it makes no sense. But what does make sense is if you like our content, like, subscribe, send it to your uncle this time. Okay, I've got a great story for you today. It is about Indrid Cold, the Smiling Man. This will be the first episode in a short little series we're doing all about the Mothman. There's been a recent bridge collapse, it's tragic, and my heart goes out to all the victims and everyone involved. And the internet's been talking about Mothman again, so I thought it's a great time to bring him up and explain to you where he comes from, first of all, and second of all, why he's sort of associated with bridges and bad luck. But first, to get to Mothman, we have to go through Cold. Indrid Cold. Everyone has heard of Mothman at this point. If you haven't heard of it yet, then keep your eyes on Wolfenhaus.com, at least the YouTube channel. You can also, if you want spoilers, definitely go check it out on the website, because that's where it's all at. We'll soon cover that winged enigma. Few people know the full story of the high strangeness surrounding the Mothman flap of Point Pleasant. Now, I should probably explain why these things are referred to as a flap. I don't know. But if there's a string of high strangeness happening in a place, or if you're seeing a lot of UFOs or Bigfoot, you just call it a flap. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. I should look into it. One of the weirder figures of the field of high strangeness made its first appearance during Mothman's debut. Indrid Cold is a humanoid creature that, if eyewitness reports are to be believed, rides around in a flying saucer. Woodrow Derenberger. That's no police car. Woodrow Derenberger was a sewing machine man, a traveling salesman, peddling sewing machines around West Virginia. It was early November in 1966. The fall chill had set in. While heading home to Mineral Wells from a successful sale, Woodrow stopped on the highway. He noticed that one of his prized sewing machines had come loose. After securing the errant device, he continued on his way. Woodrow was overtaken by another vehicle, which was being tailed by what he assumed to be a police vehicle. The car pulled in front of him and slowed down, forcing Woodrow to slow his vehicle in response. Finally, it forced him to come to a complete stop. Remember, it's nighttime, it's dark, it's spooky. The police have stopped you. Am I getting shot? Mr. Derenberger described an object landing in front of his vehicle. An old-fashioned kerosene lamp chimney, flaring at both ends, narrowing down to a small neck and then enlarging in a great bulge in the center. I'm sorry, Woodrow, that's what you sound like to me. A figure emerged from the maddening lights of the strange aircraft. It walked up to Woodrow Derenberger's window. The man held his hands firmly in his armpits. He had a strange grin on his face. His face looked like he had a good tan, a deep suntan. He was not too dark, but it was just like he had been out in the sun a lot and had a good tan. He really likes mentioning the tan. His hair was combed straight back, and it was a dark brown, and he seemed to have a good thick head of hair. Really quality tan, nice hair. Appreciating the man's looks. His eyebrows, his face, his features were very normal. I don't believe that he looked any different from any other man that you would meet on the street. Woodrow reported that the man spoke to him, although his mouth never moved. He asked me to roll down the window on my right-hand side of my truck, and I'd done what he asked. And this man stood there, and he first asked me what I was called, and knew he meant my name. Yeah, of course, Woodrow. And I told him my name, and he said, "Why are you frightened?" He said, "Don't be frightened. We wish you no harm." He said, "We mean you no harm." Why is he repeating himself? "We wish you only happiness." And I told him my name, and when I told him my name, he said he was cold. Cold. 13 days later, the Mothman made his first appearance in the nearby town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. UFO sightings were common during Mothman's invasion of Point Pleasant. Fame and glory, the persistent myth of prophet. The most unimaginative skeptics have a knee-jerk reaction when someone shares their UFO sighting. They dismiss the witness as only coming forward for the money, the assumption being that people are somehow getting rich from telling their story. It's almost as lazy as dismissing sightings as swamp gas. Look, I'm a skeptic myself, and a true skeptic looks at the facts. And the fact is that the most famous of the eyewitnesses coming forward to share their story make absolutely no money off of sharing their encounter with the enigma. What happens, in fact, is that their lives just entirely fall apart. Woodrow Derenberger claims that Indrid Cold visited him several times over the years. He even wrote a book about the experience. Derenberger's family also claimed to have seen Cold. In his book, Derenberger elaborates on the story of Indrid Cold. The smiling man claimed to have come from a planet called Lanulos in the Ganymede galaxy, 14.6 light years from Earth. It doesn't make sense. If you know your astronomy, you'll know that there is no Ganymede galaxy. There also isn't a galaxy that close to Earth. I'm not even sure if there's a star that close to Earth. No, I think Proxima Centauri is closer. I don't know. What am I, an astrophysicist? The story did the rounds in the local media for 3 weeks following Woodrow's interview. People swarmed to the Derenberger home, hoping to catch a glimpse of the spaceman. John Keel, one of the most famous journalists in the field of the paranormal, visited Woodrow at his home. He found Derenberger hiding behind the curtains, in a state of paranoia and intense fear. Woodrow claimed to be hiding from his human visitors who refused to leave him alone. His story intrigued Keel, who added it to his book, The Mothman Prophecies, which was all about the Mothman sightings in Mothman's own Point Pleasant, West Virginia, home of Mothman. Mothman. John Keel attributed Derenberger's story to the high levels of strangeness surrounding Mothman's reign of terror. The media hype might have died down, but public interest didn't. Woodrow Derenberger and his relationships suffered because of it. His family had to endure constant harassment in the form of phone calls for years. Mr. Derenberger developed bad headaches and depression. Eventually his wife left him, as wives do when you start talking about spacemen from a nearby galaxy. The man moved away from mineral wells in a desperate attempt to escape his infamy. Woodrow Derenberger's story about Indrid Cold never changed. His life, however, did. Near the end of his life, Derenberger returned to Mineral Falls. There was nothing left of his old life. 23 years after his encounter with the Smiling Man, Derenberger died in the town where it all started. So, was he mad? Was the Smiling Man real? We'll likely never know. And that's the story of Indrid Cold, the Smiling Man of Mineral Wells. It's quite interesting that there was this other encounter that is quite famous as well, that occurred around the same time as the Mothman flap. So what do you think? Was Indrid Cold real? Was Mothman there? Was he real? Were his cheeks banging like the statue? Let us know in the comments. So if you like that story, share it with someone. Tell us what you thought. Tell us about a story you want to see. Are you excited for the Mothman series coming up in the next couple of weeks? If you are, join the club. And that's been it for the Wolf and Our Show. I'll see you next time for some more spooky tales. Until then, stay smart.